What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another book haul video on the King Crusoe YouTube channel. This haul is huge. It's going to be a doozy. Of course, part of that is because this is covering April and May, so 2 months worth of collecting as opposed to one, but even when you consider that, I still went a little bit overboard. Everything that I have stacked somewhere on the desk in front of me, there's 32 bindings here. 2 of them I didn't actually obtain this month, but they're here for reference because of a couple other things. One of them is a collection of 3 books, so technically that one's 3. And then I have another, like, anthology type thing, even though I don't know if that's the right term. But still, like, if you count everything that's here, there's 31 new books, 2 other books, and then an anthology collection type thing. So I have a lot to get through, so I'm not going to talk much longer because I have 15 different items, technically, when you group things together. First thing that I got was the Lightless 10th Anniversary Edition Leatherbound by Brandon Sanderson from the Dragonsteel website. Now, in December, I did get the whole Mistborn trilogy in the leatherbound, so I have those 3 on the shelf. I don't think I've actually ever showed those off in one of these videos, but I don't feel like going to grab those and showing them off when I already have so much other stuff to show. But it looks really nice. I actually think I like this blue and silver color palette a lot more than I like that maroonish and gold color palette. What's funny about this edition that I found actually, though, when I was like kind of looking through it, is that you can actually kind of see this section around 36 where all of the chapter headings are printed on this page, but you'll see that it kind of looks a little bit weird when you turn the previous page, so you can kind of see where some of the signature got a little bit messed up and it was printed wrong. I do think when I read through it, I can eventually, figure out how to actually read that section, but I just thought that was super funny when I was going through and looking through this book. The next thing I got was that anthology thing that I was talking about, and that is the complete tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe. This is another one of those Barnes & Noble exclusive leatherbounds that they did. The long story short is basically that I was just so happy with the Lovecraft collection that I got a couple months back that I decided I had to get Poe as well. I think Edgar Allan Poe was technically, in some ways at least, my introduction to horror in a true sense, because a couple of his short stories and poems were on this I don't remember what it was called, but there was like this Edgar Allan Poe collection type of app that you could get on your phone where it was like illustrated and animated with certain of his more popular stories. So like the one that I remember most being like The Black Cat, for example. A friend of mine went through some of these in an app with me before like pep band performances back in high school. I was in like 7th or 8th grade at the time, and some of those, they didn't traumatize me, but some of those really were like, I don't like this at all for me. So, but at the same time, like, I kind of want to go through some more of these things myself, because when it comes right down to it, I don't think I've read or experienced an Edgar Allan Poe thing that I didn't enjoy in some way, even if it scared me. So, and then book 3, this actually isn't a really nice edition of anything or anything like that. I wanted to get through those 2 leatherbounds first. Book number 3 is The Life and Legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi by Ryder Windham. This is, books, a series of sort of young adult style books that are really short, relatively large font. They're for like younger readers to get into some of the EU of Star Wars. This was officially part of the EU back before Disney purchased Lucasfilm. I have the same version of this book basically for The Rise and Fall of Darth Vader and The Wrath of Darth Maul. The Wrath of Darth Maul being one of my favorite books of all time, and one that I've already reviewed on this channel before. I eventually decided, hey, I found a copy of this that was basically new, and I decided to pick it up. I am really sad because it doesn't have a slipcase like all the other versions of these books do. Maybe at some point I'll eventually find a slipcase for it, but if not, it's whatever. I have the book itself, and, the cover art is always really good on these. So I'm excited to go through this because I think this is only one of like 4 or 5 of these books. There might even be more that I don't know of, but of all the ones that I know of, this is the one that I haven't read yet. So, I kind of want to spend a day or 2 and actually read it at some point in time. And then item number 4 is the first of a series of Penguin Classics Deluxe editions that I decided to splurge and get because I'm really liking the Penguin Deluxe editions. No thank you to King James for that one. But this book, thanks, but also no thanks to Patrick for purchasing this one for me. I put it on a wish list because he insisted on buying it for me so that I could read it at some point. Um, yeah, and also no thanks to the same King James who's got me hooked on the Penguin Deluxe editions for joining Patrick and pressuring, that's not a word, and pressuring me to read this because he went through it recently and basically destroyed himself on it, and I'm not looking forward to it. So, tentative plan right now, I will say it because Patrick will kill me if I don't, is I hope to kind of give this the War and Peace treatment that I've been going through, is reading, certain parts or volumes or whatever after other books, so giving it the space and time that it deserves to actually think about it, because this is I've heard this is one of the hardest books for people to actually like read and get through, is one of the more complicated, one of the harder to understand, something along those lines, and it's also pretty long. So I'm probably going to start this in August if I can and kind of give it the War and Peace treatment for however long it takes me to read. Although that's not a 100% guaranteed promise, Patrick, I'm sorry. If things don't go according to plan when August rolls around, this may get pushed into sometime next year, but at the very least, thank you for purchasing it for me, because I wasn't going to purchase it for myself just to, satisfy you forcing me to read it. And the fifth item, another Penguin version, is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I just love the art on this. I've heard a lot of people say that the art on both the front and the back don't really match the tone of the book basically at all. I don't know what that's necessarily supposed to mean, but I just love the art. And, Dostoevsky is one of the quintessential Russian literature authors, and there are a couple people who I follow and respect who have said that for all they care, in their estimation, that Dostoevsky is like the best author of all time in terms of what he could do with as relatively few stories as he wrote. So I decided to pick this up because it looks nice and goes with my currently empty bottom shelf there, where all my Penguin Classics and Deluxe editions go. The reason that shelf is empty right now is because all of my copies are here, basically. So, moving on, the next book that I got was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is another Penguin Deluxe. It's a little bit different, but I thought it was elegant in a way that I really enjoyed. It looks really cool. This was a book that I actually read in high school. It's a book that I think a lot of people, at least in that younger millennial, older Zoomer range, have had to read in high school. This was one that, despite having to read in high school, I rather enjoyed, but wasn't one that I like paid too much attention to, so I don't remember what happens. All I know is that I kind of liked the book. So I do plan to go into this and reread it at some point and see what more I can get out of it now that I'm a little bit older, and it's one of those things that I think high schoolers aren't going to enjoy or get much out of, so the fact that I enjoyed it at all is pretty crazy. But there's that. And the final Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition for now on this list is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Another chonker, because I just got to get all of these chonky books out of the way. And another one by Leo Tolstoy, his two great novels that were both obscenely large. But I had to pick this one up, and it's actually really nice. Like, the cover is really smooth. I just love it a lot. And I've heard a gargantuan amount of criticism for different reasons for these specific translators, being Richard Pavir and Larissa Volokonsky. So the P&V translations, as they're called. The deluxe edition, the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition for Master and Margarita that I read in April, worked well enough for me, and I enjoyed that, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'm loving War and Peace, but my copy of War and Peace was translated by a different person, and part of the reason why I'm enjoying War and Peace so much is because of the prose, so we'll kind of see how things go whenever I get around to this book. However, I did find somebody on Discord recently who read this translation of this book relatively recently, and it's become one of their all-timers. Like, the translation didn't inhibit their enjoyment of it at all, so we'll kind of see how things go with this one. And although that last entry was the final Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition on this list, it isn't the final Penguin's Classic book. This is the final Penguin Classics book here, and this is Don Quixote by Cervantes. This is one that I've seen on many people's top 10 lists of all time. Pretty popular book. I don't know a whole lot about it, just that I kind of like this old rustic style of artwork that's on the cover, and you know, just knowing an obscene amount of people who have read it and absolutely loved it. It's kind of similar situation to Count of Monte Cristo. Didn't know a whole lot about it when I got it. It's just a book that I decided to obtain because there are so many people who have it as an all-time favorite after they read it. So, this is now part of the collection as well, to sit right next to Count of Monte Cristo. So now we've gone through 8 of the 15 items. We're right around halfway through this list, technically speaking. The next item on the list is The Witcher series by, I'm not going to try to pronounce this guy's first name because I don't know Polish, Sapkowski or something like that. I'm learning Russian, and that's a Slavic, that's the term. It's a Slavic language similar to how Polish is, I think. Is Polish a Slavic language? I don't remember at all. Whatever. This is a series that I've seen a surprising amount of mixed things about. Not one that like a lot of people like these short story collections, these first 2, and then the first couple books are pretty mediocre. Book 3, apparently, Baptism of Fire, is one that a lot of people really love. But at the same time, I don't really care that much. Like, they're pretty short books, so I don't mind going through something that's just serviceable series or whatever. But I was considering getting these because I'm a gamer and I like The Witcher, and because these covers are just awesome. There's another edition of the books that are like that normal red cover that kind of have the more traditional fantasy artwork, I guess, at the top. But I decided that I liked these covers better and I wanted to get them. I actually got these in a boxed set when I got them, but that box was just like worthless. I'm surprised that these books survived as much as they did, like in the quality condition that they're in at the moment, because that box was basically torn to shreds. Like, you couldn't keep that box. Nobody would keep that box. So either way, I really like this artwork, really simple, and basically all the colors on them look really good. So I'm not a huge fan of that now on Netflix fake sticker thing that companies like to do with publishing books. They should know that readers don't like seeing those, but you know, it's fine. I liked these covers enough that I decided to go through with them despite that. So that was item number 9. Next up, this is where we kind of get into a lot of these Orbit books that I decided to get. The publisher. I got the Lycanius trilogy by James Islington. There was a read-along for this series in Mike's Book Reviews Discord in April and May for the first 2 books, and I think for the 3rd book this month in June, that I was really highly debating joining when it happened, but my reading schedule was already so tight, and these books are so much bigger than I thought they were. They're huge, that I decided that I just ultimately couldn't join, so I couldn't justify trying to fit them into the schedule. But either way, they're books that I plan to give a shot at some point in time. These covers you can't pass up on. They're like, when I first saw them, I heard people talking about how cool the covers are. I first saw them and I was just like, yeah, they're fine. But I've gotten so into these Orbit published floppy trade paperback copies of books that I just couldn't pass them up when I finally decided to get them. They are long books, but there is only 3 of them, so I'm really not too worried about it. Next item on the list is The Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. This is a one volume copy that has all of the 3 original books in the Dragon Riders Dragon Riders of Pern trilogy. Several years ago, I used to do a yearly summer program thing at my public library. Every year there was like a 5x5 bingo sheet that we used to do, you know, like certain challenges for kids to, you know, do with their reading. Like, you would have one square that was like, listen to an audiobook or listen to a book while riding a bike, or, you know, certain activities, some of which didn't even have anything to do with reading, just being active or something like that. But every year I would do this bingo sheet, and I think almost every year, if not every year, I did a full blackout because I wanted to. I don't remember the exact prompt it is off the top of my head, but this trilogy was recommended by one of the librarians for a specific square. I think it might have been the square was to read a librarian recommendation or something like that, but I ended up using a different recommendation to actually read for that square, so I never read this. But I've always wanted to. But eventually I forgot that the books existed, and I was trying to remember for several months over the course of last year and this year, actually, what they were. But then I was watching Brandon Sanderson doing a live signing session, and he mentioned Anne McCaffrey and how her dragons and was probably like her dragons and how good they are, and how the series was one of his major influences, one of the things that got him into favorite fantasy series basically. And that was when I suddenly remembered what it was. When Brandon basically said Pern, I was like, that's it. That's the series. So I decided to buy the books so that I could read them and see what they're about at some point. Spoiler alert for a book or a video that I think I have coming in July, if I remember correctly. That's a series that I do want to get into in 2023. And continuing on along a kind of similar path, item number 12 was the Harper Hall trilogy. So another series in the Dragon Riders of Pern. This is a much shorter series than the original one. Like, these books are really short. I don't know how quick I'll go through them whenever I get around to reading them, but I'm sure I'll get through them quick. And speaking of Brandon Sanderson doing live signing sessions, there was a live signing session where he had a friend of his, Dan Wells, on, and he talked about this series, like this specific one, Harper Hall, a lot, and that kind of got me excited to read it as well. So now item 13 is halfway a cheat, but halfway not. The first two books of it here, you'll see Faithful and the Fallen. These two books I already had that I got a couple months ago. I don't remember exactly when, but they're the Orbit trade paperback versions. In the last, well, it wasn't the most recent book haul, I don't think. I don't remember when I got them, but in the book haul when I got Faithful and the Fallen, I showed off these two books, and I had also Ruin and Wrath as well, but they were a smaller version. They were the UK paperback, I believe they were. So they were smaller. They didn't match the shelf right. But I decided that bothered me because I'm a very picky book collector. So I decided to get the actual Orbit published trade paperback versions of these two books so that they actually match on the shelf, and I'm very happy with them. I mean, somehow Ruin still manages to be like 1/8 of an inch taller than the rest of the books, but it's not enough that I'm going to complain that much about it. But yeah, so I got those. I replaced these two versions, so that was the next item. And the reason I did this was because I decided to get item number 14, which is the Blood and Bone trilogy by John Gwynne. These covers are fantastic. I like how they kind of deviate from the white a little bit. Just amazing covers. But yeah, I decided to get Of Blood and Bone, so I was like, well, if I'm going to get them, I'm going to get them in the Orbit trade, floppy trade version. You know, like, I want them to be the big version, and if I'm going to have them and show them off, I don't want to have the first two books in Faithful and the Fallen in that size, then have the next two in a smaller size, and then have Of Blood and Bone in a bigger size. So that's why I got Faithful and the Fallen in a bigger version, so that they could all match. This cover is fantastic. Such a deep red. It's amazing. I love it so much. Here we come, finally, to the final item in the list. I know it's a long haul. This is probably the longest book haul that I'm going to have for a very long time, if not forever. So we'll see how things go. But this is the final item, and this is the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. Or at least the first two, since that's all that's published right now. I know that this first book was one that many people had, like, favorite cover of the year over the course of 2021 when it was published. That's because it's just super epic. If you kind of open up a little bit, you can kind of see the full picture of the art. Super amazing artwork, and this series kind of goes into a little bit more of that Norse mythology type of thing that I'm really intrigued by. But there's also the second book in the series, Hunger of the Gods, and this covers somehow even better than Shadow of the Gods, another, you know, favorite cover of the year type of thing. So yeah, similar to Blood and Bone and Faithful and the Fallen, I wanted to have all of these in that same size so that they all look nice on the shelf, and I can't wait for whenever the third book eventually comes out. But obviously, I've got to wish John all of the love in the world for the recent loss of his daughter. Very thankful to hear about the fact that his publisher and his agent and nobody's trying to push him or rush him for the final book of the series. Of course, I, as a reader and as somebody who cares about other people, no need to rush the final book in the series for as long as he doesn't feel like he can do it for right now. Either way, this is the end of this book haul. With all of these books, man, my voice hurts after all of this. So I'm going to try to take a little bit of a step back the next couple months and not get much of anything at all if I can help it, because I've run out of shelf space again, and this time I don't think I can reconcile it. I think if I manage to reconcile it, it'll take a lot of rearranging and very meticulous planning on being able to fit shelves in. So we're just gonna have to see how things go in the future. But yeah, this is the end of this video. Please check out seasonalproductions.com. It recently just got reworked, revamped, the whole website was fixed up. So if you want to go check that out to see all of my YouTube videos as well as my original writing projects and whatnot, all in one place, easy for you to access there. You can just go to the site and what's the term? You can just go to the site and bookmark it, save it, and just check out whatever I have coming out at different times. So yeah, that'll be the end of this video. Stick around for whatever I've got coming next. I'll be back again on Monday with another episode of The Book Bench.